Good day, everyone. Today, our group, which consists of Devina,
Hello.
Andreas, Catherine,
Hello everyone.
and Vern,
Hello.
is going to explain about the theory and analysis of Grice's cooperative principle. Let us start, shall we? So, what is the cooperative principle? According to Grice, the principle is about making your conversational contribution such as is required at the stage at which it occurs by the accepted purpose or direction of the talk exchange in which you are engaged. This principle determines the way in which language is used to its full potential by speakers to achieve rational and successful communication, assuming that the speakers are cooperating. The cooperative principle itself consists of the maxim of quality, quantity, relation, and manner. The cooperative principle by Grice is proven to be one of the most influential theories in the development of pragmatics. I know, you all might be asking, what makes it so important then? Well, it is concerned with distinguishing and drawing the lines between what is said and what is actually meant. The act of saying can be completely different to what is actually meant, especially during a conversation. This implied meaning is what is often called by the term implicature, which we will learn next.
What is implicature? Implicature is a pragmatic subfield which refers to what is suggested in an utterance without being expressed by the speaker. This could also mean what the speaker is saying implicates different meanings with what the utterance actually means. Implicatures can be used in many aspects of language, such as figures of speech, the irony, hyperbole, simile, litotes, etc., and modes of speech, which includes relevance, strengthening, limiting, and metalinguistic implicature. There are many reasons why speakers use implicature in their utterance. One of them is to produce a verbal efficiency. In Grice's theory of implicature, it is further divided into two types. They are conventional implicature and conversational implicature.
When you hear the word conventional implicature, what do you think about it? Do you think this is a difficult thing to learn? I hope you don't think that conventional implicatures are difficult to learn, because once you look at the example, you will think that this is the easiest thing to learn. Now, let's discuss about conventional implicature. Conventional implicature is a part of the conventional meaning of a word or construction, which means that the meanings are not context dependent. Basically, this is what is generally known as sentence or literal meaning. Let's take a look at this sentence. I have a lot of work to do. If we do not regard the sentence context, the sentence simply says that the speaker has a lot of work to do. The example is what we call conventional meaning, since the sentence is not context dependent. Conventional implicature also doesn't contribute to the truth conditions of a sentence. Conventional implicature cued by the word and, but, and therefore. However, in this case, I'll just focus on the word therefore. Grice illustrates that using the word therefore doesn't affect the truth value of a sentence, which means that the claim of a causal relationship is only conventionally implicated and not entailed. To better understand the theory, let's take a look at this new example. If I say the sentence, Jono is an Indonesian man, he is therefore a coward, I, as the speaker, have implicated that all Indonesian men are cowards by uttering therefore. However, the truth conditions is that not all Indonesian men are cowards, since I don't say that all Indonesian men are cowards, but I just implicated it and not entailed it. Nonetheless, if the sentence Jono is an Indonesian man, he is therefore a coward entails with all Indonesian men are cowards, then it is true that all Indonesian men are cowards. It is so because entailment is where the truth of one requires the truth of the other. To summarize, conventional implicature deals with only the semantic content of the sentence.
Now, on to the second one, which is conversational implicature. This type of implicature is a pragmatic inference that is not tied to the particular words and phrases in an utterance. Because of that, the inferences that we can make mainly come from the specific context in a conversation. This is what is known as hidden or implied meaning. Its significance is that it gives explicit account of how it is possible to mean more than what is literally expressed in terms of conventional sense. Conversational implicature is the main focus of Grice's cooperative principle. Conversational implicature itself is further divided into two. The first one is generalized implicature. It defines as the type of implicature that arises without any particular context or special scenario being necessary. This means that the utterance can be inferred with what is only expressed in the utterance itself, without having to look at any particular context. Now, let's take a look at one example. Tessie says, "That is just wonderful. I can now enjoy my nap peacefully." As we can see, the utterance lacks context, so we do not really understand why the speaker says such a thing. Therefore, we can infer what the speaker implies without taking account any particular context, since there is not any. Thus, we can say that the speaker is happy because she has finally got the chance to take a nap. The second one is particularized implicature. It defines as the type of implicature that requires specific context. As opposed to generalized implicature, this one depends on the context to be inferred properly, since the utterance happens during a specific context. Now, let us go back to the previous example and add another utterance to give us a more specific context. Tessie's daughter says, "Mom, I dropped the vase onto the floor." And then Tessie replies, "That is just wonderful. I can now enjoy my nap peacefully." In this context, Tessie, as the speaker, produces the utterance because she is annoyed at her daughter that she cannot take a peaceful nap because she has to clean up the broken vase. Thus, one simple utterance can generate a variety of different meanings, depending on the context, of course. Now that we're done with the types of conversational implicature, we are going to move on to the common forms of conversational implicature. It can come in many forms, mainly using figures of speech and modes of speech. The first one we are going to discuss is figures of speech. Figures of speech are words which are expressed figuratively. Therefore, it has to be noted that figures of speech are not to be analyzed literally, since they can mean other things. Some common figures of speech are irony, hyperbole, lithotest, and metaphor. To make it clearer, let's move on to the example. While it is actually raining, Maria says, "Today's weather is lovely." This makes it an irony, and the utterance actually means the opposite of the situation. The implicature is that the weather is not great, as the speaker's utterance expresses annoyance. Now to the second form, which is modes of speech. Modes of speech are the opposite of figures of speech, as they are non-figurative. So, the utterance is literal, and the speakers do not intend what they say to be obviously false and generally do mean what they say. However, from this literal sense, the implicature can still be inferred by taking a closer look as to why the speakers say what they say in relation to the context. Let's take a look at an example taken from Davis. A is writing a testimonial about a pupil who is a candidate for a philosophy job, and his letter reads as follows: Dear Sir, Mr. X's command of English is excellent, and his attendance at tutorials has been regular. Yours? Because of A not describing about Mr. X's quality that is related for a philosophy job, it is implied that Mr. X is not a suitable candidate. Therefore, Mr. X lacks the necessary skill for the job, and A does not intend to say something that is false or untrue. By saying or writing something different than what is intended, we can see that the implicature can be inferred despite the sentence being meant to be literal.
Okay, now we are going to move on to maxims. Maxim is a way to explain the connection between utterances and what is understood from them. Maxims are based on the cooperative principle that has been mentioned above. Also, listeners and speakers have to cooperatively and mutually accept each other to be understood in a particular way. There are 4 conversational maxims according to Paul Grice. First one is the maxim of quality. It is a conversational maxim which is concerned with telling information in conversation to be genuine and justified. The purpose that Grice makes is to respect each other's authentic conversation of the information from each turn. The main requirements for this maxim are: the first one is, do not say what you believe to be false, and the second one is, do not say that for which you lack adequate evidence. Thus, the main point of this maxim is basically the speakers have to be truthful. Okay, we move on to the example of the maxim. The first one is, there is a conversation between Andreas and Catherine. Andreas asks about the existence of Fuji Mountain. Catherine then answers, it is in Japan. From this conversation, Catherine obeys the maxim of quality because she answers that question about what she believes. She believes that Fuji Mountain is in Japan because Fuji Mountain is indeed in Japan. Therefore, Catherine is telling the truth and doesn't lack evidence. The second example is between Catherine and Vern. Catherine asks if smoking is good for our health or not. Then Vern answers that smoking is, in fact, good for our health. From this conversation, Vern flouted the maxim of quality because most people know that smoking is obviously bad for health. Vern obviously knows this and uses sarcasm. Vern's returns implies that it is ridiculous for Catherine to ask such an obvious question. The cause of the flouting of the maxim is because Vern's return is untrue and lacks evidence.
Second is the maxim of quantity, which is a conversational maxim that makes sure if the contribution of the speaker is just enough, meaning that the speaker's utterance answers accordingly to the question. It has 2 main requirements. The first one, we have to make sure that our contribution is as informative as what is required. The contribution should fulfill the requirement of the current purposes of exchange. The second one, still related to the previous requirement, our contribution must not be more informative than what is required. To put it in short, any TMI or too much information will be counted as a flouting to the maxim. For example, there is a conversation between Tom and Jerry. Tom says, "Hello Jerry, where will you go after school?" Jerry answers, "I will go to the supermarket." From the example above, Jerry obeys the maxim of quantity. Jerry's utterance has fulfilled the information needed by Tom. answering the question about where Jerry will go after school, with no access information. Now let's take a look to the second example. There is a conversation between Mawar and Devina. Mawar asks, "Why were you late to yesterday's meeting?" Devina answers, "I was having a bad headache yesterday. I slept at 3 o'clock and woke up at 11 o'clock, an hour late after the meeting." Based on the example, Devina is flouting the maxim of quantity. Devina gives information more than what is needed, the reason why Devina was late for the meeting, by giving excess information. Devina was having a bad headache, slept at 3 o'clock, and woke up at 11 o'clock.
Now, to the third one. The maxim of relevance or relation is a conversational maxim which is concerned with how relevant is the utterance to the topic. The only main requirement is to make your contributions relevant. To put it simply, in a conversation, the speakers cannot deviate from the original topic that is being talked about, or else they will be flouting the maxim. Therefore, the speakers must stay true to the topic of the conversation by sticking to one single topic before moving on to another one. The first example is about Warren asking Chloe, "Why did you go to the party?" She then responds, "I went to the party because I was bored." Based on the example above, Chloe obeys the maxim of relevance because she responds to Warren's question accordingly based on the topic of the conversation, which is about why she went to the party, fulfilling the main requirement of the maxim of relevance. Let's take a look at another example. The conversation begins with Catherine asking Devina, "Devina, how did you do your makeup?" Devina then replied, saying, "I went there by plane." As you can see, in the conversation, Devina flouted the maxim of relevance because she does not answer accordingly to what Catherine asks, as the topics of Devina's utterance does not appear to match Catherine's. Catherine's topic is about makeup, while Devina's seems to be about holidays. Therefore, Devina's contribution is not as is required due to her irrelevant utterance.
The last type of conversational maxim is the maxim of manner. It is the maxim that mainly requires the speaker to be easily understood, which means to avoid obscurity, avoid ambiguity, be brief, and be orderly. Therefore, utterances have to avoid obscurity and ambiguity. In this type of maxim, if the speaker appears not to be easily understood, it will be counted as a flouting. Here are some examples of the maxim of manner. In this conversation, Veronica asked Maggie, "Hey Maggie, what do you think of the novel entitled One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus?" Then, Maggie answers that she likes the plot of the novel, especially the ending one, because it was really a plot twist. In the conversation, Maggie obeys the maxim of manner because Maggie puts her answer in an orderly manner. First, Maggie's utterance can be easily understood because she directly says that she likes the plot of the novel. Then, she specifies it further by adding that she likes the ending. In the second conversation example, Jane asks Lucinta whether she can help her or not. Lucinta then answers, "Okay, maybe." In this conversation, Lucinta violates the maxim of manner by being unclear because Lucinta answered maybe, which can either mean Lucinta can help Jane or not.
Now that we have understood about the 4 conversational maxims, we have learned that they can be flouted. You all might be wondering, what does flouting actually mean? According to Levinson, flouting means that the speaker deliberately and ostentatiously breaches the maxim. This can be done intentionally or not by the speaker, not to deceive anyone, but to prompt the hearer to look for a meaning which is different or in addition to the expressed meaning. However, the flouted utterance can still indirectly convey additional information which is hidden. This addition is what is known as implicature this whole time. Let us recap. To put this in perspective, the maxim of quality can be flouted when the speaker says something which is untrue due to the lack of evidence. The maxim of quantity can be flouted when the speaker gives too much or too less information than as is required. The maxim of relevance or relation can be flouted when the speaker responds irrelevantly to the topic. The maxim of manner can be flouted when what the speaker says is ambiguous and not clear.
How to analyze? By learning the theory above, we can apply it to do an analysis on a real conversation. In doing it, there are three crucial components that must be present. They are the utterances, the speech event, and the elaboration.
Of course, before doing the analysis, we have to find some utterances as the data to be analyzed. The utterances are to be in the form of turn-taking, meaning the speakers have their own fair share of speaking turn, and is usually done by two speakers. One pair of dialogue is enough for the data. We then analyze the second speaker's utterance. Here is a scene that we can use as an example for our data. This scene takes place in the guidance counselor's office with a counselor and a student as the speakers.
Why are you keep getting bad grades?
Really? My grades are not too bad for a student like me, and maybe I'm not good at mathematics, English, and chemistry, so maybe my grades are not too bad.
In the speech event, we basically have to explain what is happening during the situation that the utterances take place. In the given dialogue above, we can explain that a student is in the guidance counselor's office. When the counselor and the student start conversing, the counselor asks the student why she keeps getting bad grades.
Third is the elaboration. When it comes to this part, we have to elaborate. First, the intention of the first speaker's utterance. Second, the second speaker's understanding of the first speaker's utterance. Third, whether the second speaker's response is appropriate or not. Fourth, what type of maxim is flouted and how it is flouted. And the last is the implicature. I know that some of you will be confused if you just look at the how to elaborate it. So, here's the example to make it more clear. When the guidance counselor asks the student about her grade, the counselor is actually concerned with her academic performance. So she asks why her grades are bad. The student doesn't seem to understand the counselor's real meaning because she gives too much unrelated information. Semantically, the student's answer is appropriate. In the conversation, the student flouts all of four the maxims. First, she flouts the maxim of quality because she lies that her grades are not bad and lacks adequate evidence to deny it. Second, she flouts the maxim of quantity because she gives too much information than what is originally asked by the counselor. Third, she flouts the maxim of relation because she doesn't answer accordingly to the topic of the conversation, deviating it by telling other unrelated information. Lastly, she flouts the maxim of manner because she doesn't put her answer in an orderly manner, and she gives an ambiguous answer to be understood clearly. By doing so, the student implies that she doesn't want anyone to confront and know about her bad grades.
The second part of the elaboration should talk about what kind of impact that the utterance has on the situation. It can, for example, create a humorous situation or even conflict. The utterance that we analyze can also convey an emphasis on the speaker's character. Let's take a look at the example. This creates a conflict in the situation because this student does not answer directly to the counselor's question. Instead, she denies it. Also, she denies her bad grades in front of a faculty member who has more authority. The flouting of all of the four maxims helps emphasize the student's character as a slacker and a liar.
Let's recap what we have learned above. Implicature deals with the meaning of an utterance. There are two different kinds of implicature: conventional implicature and conversational implicature. Conventional implicature deals with the literal meaning of the utterance, while conversational implicature deals with the implied or hidden meaning of the utterance. There are four types of maxim, which are maxim of quality, quantity, relevance, and manner. These maxims can also be flouted during a conversation. Flouting of the maxim of quality happens when the speaker gives information which doesn't match with the actual facts. Flouting of the maxim of quantity happens when the speaker gives too much or little information. Flouting of the maxim of relevance happens when the speaker deviates from the original topic that is being talked about. Flouting of the maxim of manner happens when the speaker doesn't clearly give information. There are three components that we can apply in analyzing a real conversation. First is the utterances. The utterances that are going to be analyzed should be in the form of turn-taking. After you find the dialogue, then you analyze the second speaker response. Second is the speech event. In this part, we have to explain what is happening during the situation and where the conversation takes place. Third is the elaboration. In this part, we have to elaborate the intention of the first speaker's utterance, the second speaker's understanding of the first speaker's utterance, whether the second speaker's response is appropriate or not, what type of maxim is flouted and how it is flouted, and the implicature. After that, we have to elaborate the impact that the utterance has, be it creating a humorous effect or even conflict. From the utterances, we can also convey the speaker's characteristics. Thank you for watching this video, and we hope this video helps you better understand about Grice cooperative principle. Goodbye everyone!